It is well known that since the times of the ancients, humans are not allowed within the boundaries of the fairy kingdom. However, there are certain bands of wanderers, known as the Harmony, who crisscross the civilized lands in small groups that are considered welcomed guests by many towns. These inveterate travelers are magicians, storytellers, and entertainers who bring such joy and revelry that they are allowed safe passage. Unfortunately, it is not unknown for members of this group to overstep their bounds and at times leave a half-elfin child in their wake. I am one of these children. Among my people, a half-elf is considered a great danger to the bloodlines of the pure people. And although the elves are not as cruel as to kill a child such as this, they do have very harsh traditions concerning the care of a bastardling. For example, all half-elves are forbidden to practice the magical arts, no matter how great their inclination. It is said that the temperament caused by their human blood can be at best ambitious, and at its worst bloodthirsty. These children are most often relegated to positions of servitude as laborers and soldiers. Also, a half-elf is forbidden to procreate. This is accomplished with a simple sterilization by the healers of the community that has the side effect of leaving the subject without desire for the company of the opposite sex, and in some extreme cases, anyone, thus accounting for the reputations of the half-elves as recluses. Now, as I have previously stated, it is taboo for us to practice magic, but as a strange twist of fate, the Harmony are well-known masters of the arts of divination. It is an accepted but unspoken fact that many of our kind are gifted seers, haunted by dreams and visions of impending events both great and horrible. It is with this that I begin my tale. 2 centuries ago, a band of Harmony passed through our village during the festival of autumn solstice. After 3 days, they left behind much joy, merriment, and a pregnant, noble girl named Lamanna, my mother. As is common in such pregnancies, her frail form could not withstand the intensity of bearing a half-human child, and she died in childbirth. Her family, the ruling lady and lord of the village, accepted the death as a price she paid for her violations of the old laws, and took it upon them to raise me in the proper tradition. As I grew to adulthood, I earned an honored position for one such as myself as the house protector. My human heritage and sterilization had left me physically empowered far beyond the norm. I was strong, fast, and gifted with an uncanny sense of coming dangers. Though still treated as the lowest member of the social class, I was fed and cared for like a dangerous trained animal. By my adulthood, I had been given the name Rathuel, which means guarding rage, and I was as respected as much as any such as I could expect. In the spring of my 230th year, it came to pass that a great horror from the days of old re-entered the isolated vale of Carnotaur. 3 families became stricken with the horrid plague of black tears. The plague had once devastated the fairy kingdoms, but the great Sylvan witches had managed to destroy the disease altogether. How this had come about was a secret sealed to all but the oldest and wisest of sages, since all knowledge of those dark elders was lost and forbidden. In the old times, the elves had believed in a balance between the lighter and darker forces of nature. The witches were considered valued members of our society and were called upon throughout the ancient history to defend and destroy when all other methods failed. But in the times of the New Age, when peace and prosperity befell the elves, the great matriarchs joined in council and banned the presence of dark magic altogether. It is said in whispers that the great spellcasters and priests of light feared that the witches might overtake their authority. The hunts began, and the witches were banished from the great kingdoms. Now, however, in our small village, it became obvious that the imminent death would overtake us. The plague of black tears resisted all healing magic. Once it began its course, it was all but unstoppable. Without the art of the witches to aid us, and the end of our lives seemed imminent. It was in great desperation that the lady of our town called upon me to enter the chambers of council. She sat upon the oaken throne, surrounded by the priests and sages of the village. A great fire burned in the center of the room, and the magnificent open windows let in the cool white glow of the moon and stars of night. A biting cold was upon the spring breeze as they gazed upon me in intense concentration, probing my thoughts and memory. "Rathuel of Our Lady's Guard," called out the warrior at her side, announcing me to the room. "My lady," I said, bowing low and descending to the floor on one knee, as was expected of one of my station in her presence. "Rathuel, do you know why you are here?" the lady asked, her great amber eyes boring deep into my mind. "No, my lady, I do not. I would like you to keep in mind, Rathuel, that a half-elf has not been allowed within the walls of this room according to our laws since time untold. It is only in great need that I bring you here. This should indicate to you how dire our situation. My lady, I will serve in whatever capacity I may." "Good, Rathuel. I would tell you that the only means by which you were allowed to step foot in council was for me to bestow upon you a great blessing. What is this, my lady? You shall from this moment on be considered by all the elven people as one of their own." With these words, I looked upon the silver-haired ruler before me with awe and not a small degree of terror. "But my lady," I stuttered, "how is this possible?" "It can be done, Rathuel, and it has been made so. I am truly honored, my lady, but why?" "It is known to us, Rathuel, that one of your lineage is possessed of certain gifts. We have need of these gifts." "But my lady, it is forbidden." "No, Rathuel, it is forbidden for a half-elf to practice these arts. However, you are no longer such. Therefore, you may use these forces. We need you to do this for our people, Rathuel. You may well be our only hope." "But my lady, I have no knowledge of these things. I have only intuition and fragments of dreams. I can do no more divine fate than breathe underwater." "We shall aid you, Rathuel. We have ways to induce a receptive state for this gift to be used. There is danger, but we must risk it." With this, her face grew ashen and grave. Her eyes darkened to an unsettling depth of despair. "We are dying, Rathuel, and from these borders the disease will progress. We must know how the ancients defeated the plague. My lord, my husband, lays weeping black tears and gasping for each new breath. All he sees is darkness and decay. The lost dead surround him and seek to carry his spirit to the dark spheres. He cared for you so greatly all these years. You would not turn from him." "No, my lady, of course not. I will do all I can, but what must I do?" "Rise and be seated," she ordered. A chair was brought to me, and I was seated before the council facing the great fire. "Bring the sacred wine," she said, as a small crystal glass of golden liquid was placed in my hand. "This wine will aid you in entering a trance. Once in this state, it will be upon you to search the dream world for an answer. You must be strong once in the trance state, or you may not be able to return. You will be able to speak and report to us all that you observe. I will give you a name, and once in the sphere of sleep, you must call it out until this being approaches you. The name is Marduluk." "Who is this Marduluk, my lady?" "She is a sorcière, the witch who cast the plague in olden times. She and her followers were captured and destroyed at the dawn of the New Age by our grandmothers. She is locked in one of the dark spheres. She will not be able to harm you, but your will must be of iron. Are you ready, Rathuel? If so, then drink of the wine and gaze into the fire." The liquid was warm and bitter. It tasted of strange plants and burned my mouth as I swallowed. I felt my body warm like liquid metal as the room and fire grew brighter and less defined. My heart pounded rhythmically like a great drum as all sensation altered. I felt a solemn oneness with all that surrounded me, and yet at the same time I felt as if I was leaving, traveling to some distant point. I felt great terror, as if a pit had opened up beneath me and I plummeted down into some merciless depth. I felt as if I was riding upon the back of some great invisible force, a dragon of energy that was carrying me through walls of light and sound. And then there was silence and darkness. When the blackness lifted, I was amongst the stars floating in emptiness, looking back upon a path of mist through the cosmos. There was a current of forces whirling around me, like winds tangling around my spirit. It was within this current I felt pulled in all manner of directions. I became aware that there were explosions of dim brightness all around me. In this light I could see illuminated globes like glass floating through the night. Within some raged storms which burst with lightning, causing a ghostly light by which I could see. Others only hung empty but for the countless whirling wispy forms. As I turned, I saw that below were more globes, but these burned as if filled with molten rock. No matter where I looked, however, I could sense that all around me there was indefinable presence. There were things moving in the darkness, shapeless and gray. I had entered the other lands, and I floated among the awesome spheres that contained alternate realities within the void. Some were prisons, and others the home of great entities residing silent in eternity. In all this wonder, I remembered my quest. "Mardulek!" I yelled out into the emptiness. "Mardulek, answer my call!" Then amidst the pulling winds of infinity, I felt as if an unseen hand reached out, and I began to fall towards the lower spheres. "Who calls?" came a soft, wondrous voice that enveloped me. I felt now that I was caught and being whirled at an axis of a certain sphere from which came a soft star-like glow. "My name is of no importance. I am a servant of the Elven nations." "Oh, then," said the distinctly feminine voice, "then I shall call you slave. Why have you come here? This is no place for a weak spirit such as yours." "You are Mardulek, the sorceress?" I asked, uncertain if some deception had befallen me. "Indeed I am, nameless slave. Did you expect a demon, perhaps, a twisted spirit of evil?" "I expect nothing. I have come to beg you for aid." "Oh dear, a servant of the Elves begging at the door of some forgotten witch. How very interesting. What tribute have you brought for me in turn?" "None at all, I see. How typical of those cursed nobles. Priests, I'll wager. I suppose you believe me an evil being, then. Practitioner of the black arts. We save their world tenfold times, and in turn we are hunted and exiled. Go home, slave, and tell your mistress to rot, whoever she may be." "But please, the plague has returned. We shall perish." "Not so, nameless slave. I believe you are half-elf, correct? The plague will not end you. It will only kill those of pure elven blood. Humans, those of their line, are immune. How delicious it all seems now, those crafty demon worshippers. All the thralls of Camelix the Devourer." "Who were the thralls of a demon?" "The humans who created the plague, you fool. They were in league with the demons, and so created the plague to destroy the elves. So see, you have nothing to fear, slave. You shall walk from the ravages of the plague unscathed." "But my people, your people, are you trying to make a comedy of this, slave? They are no more your people than the ugly human who sired you." "But how did you end it? How did you destroy the plague?" "I didn't destroy it, you idiot." Her voice now boomed like thunder through my phone, then calmed into a low, serious tone like a quiet song. "I contained it. I used my magic to control the spread of the disease until it died out. Those fools should have realized, though, that it would not disappear altogether for all time. Not a plague born of demons and their vile power. How Marduk? How could you control such a thing? Your mistress is listening, isn't he? She and those of her council all gathered, listening as we speak, sending their poor little half-breed into the lair of a lost witch to beg for answers. Or to trick me, perhaps. Perhaps they deceive as in the past. What greater irony is there, slave, than when two deceivers are lying to one another and both believing the other honest? No greater irony, but two truth-tellers speaking honestly and both doubting the other. Who are the deceivers, half-breed? And who speaks the truth? Do you believe when I tell you, nameless half-breed slave? Or perhaps I should just call you Rathuel. That's right. I know your name. Did you think your lady the only one who could delve into thoughts? No, for I am far more powerful even now than she shall ever be. You have come for my aid, O guarding rage. Oh, how delightful a name. Yes, I shall help you, Rathuel the slave. I will aid as I did so long ago, but beware, for they did not appreciate my aid in those times, and I doubt they will now. You see, the plague cannot be cured, for it is of the darkest evil. By its design, all who befall it are gripped and slowly submerged in dark power until their pitiful spirits find their way to one of those horrid spheres you saw when you arrived. The plague corrupts the fabric of the soul, Rathuel. The victims sees only darkness and horror through their black tears until sadness and insanity tear them from their very life. Elves are immortal, dear Rathuel. They walk for centuries until their bodies lie down in sleep. It is then their spirits carry on, ether free to travel plains of light, or captured and imprisoned on earth, or in the dark lower spheres. I saved the elves by freeing them from the plague before it could corrupt them. And now, since you have so politely asked, I shall oblige to do it again. It was then I felt a horror overtake me. That intuition which had guided me throughout my years warned me now of the greatest terror I would ever know. I tried to flee, to find the path which had brought me, but Marduk held me still as she began to chant. Her song was ancient and spoke of a nightmare storm and the violation of sacred laws. As she finished, I felt her grip loosen and I was set adrift, then caught, and then finally returned. I was back in the chamber, and all the council stared from their seats. In their eyes was a fear I had never witnessed before. From absolute horrified silence, my lady spoke. What have we done? She whispered as a black tear fell down her ivory porcelain cheek. My lady, I asked, standing to my unsteady feet, what does this mean? Are we saved? What was the witch speaking of? We are doomed, she said, weeping, and began to sway in the light of the now fading fire. The council members were standing to hold her erect. The witch continued to speak through you, Rathuel, even after she released you. Do you not remember what she said? No, my lady, please tell me. She said that only one of half-elven blood could carry the beast, Rathuel. Only one of human blood could hold such evil. This was why the laws forbid the half-elf from practicing magic. I have doomed us. I have given the witch a vehicle to return her monstrosity. Do you not feel it, Rathuel? Do you not sense a change in yourself? As she said these last words, I felt the call within me. Deep within my chest, inside my pounding heart, I could hear the chant. Fire and rage began to consume me. The calm night had become a storm, and the rain poured in from the night outside, carried by a crushing wind. My body began to tremble and ache as horrible, exquisite pain coursed through my limbs and flesh. The council members were calling out for the guards as they backed away to the corners of the chamber, leaving my lady standing before me, weeping, tearing at her gown as the black tears stained its light blue fabric. My tormented body was but a pale glimmer of anger and intense ripping sorrow in my mind and heart. I felt as if my soul were being torn and shredded by vicious, sharp claws, and as I watched, I saw that these claws were my own, and they tore not my soul but my skin. Warm blood ran down my legs in a gushing torrent, and I felt as if some awesome devil was tearing its way out of my body. And so it was. My lady screamed and fell to her knees, praying to the powers of light as the beast stood before her. I watched from within, looking out through its eyes, and listened as it spoke from its massive, gaping, dragon-like head. Its features were a mixture of reptile and rabid, starving wolf, its body towering and lined with sharp, jagged protrusions of bone as it said, "I have returned to save your people." Chained within it, I screamed as it snatched her from her knees and devoured her. The council members fled into the storm, but the beast followed. It stalked them one by one in the darkness, and continued on until all were slain and fed upon. The beast left nothing, no bones or flesh lying in the mud of the streets. Its hunger was endless and its mission certain. It could smell who carried the plague. Even those who did not know they bore the disease could not hide from the beast's senses. It would track them, fleeing into the forest or hiding in caves. No magic could stop it, and no weapon could kill it. It slept only after all those infected were slain. So the plague was ended in our land, and I know not if any survived. When I awakened, I left that land and began my wandering. The beast was gone for the time being, but I knew that within me it rode, waiting for that familiar scent. I would carry it as I crossed the highland, searching without a home. In this way, I would serve my people, and indeed I felt now they were my people more than ever before. After all, my lady had ordained me a full elf in spirit, even if in blood I was mixed. Now I felt the presence of three strengths within me. The human was my father, the elf was my mother, and the beast of my cosmic godmother, Marjuluk. For as I had sat in the trance within the council chamber, she had spoken one last time before my soul returned. She had given me a new name. My lady was the only to hear. I was to be called Rathuel Vangorn Comledum, Guardian Rage, the Plague Eater.